Feliciano is an ex-49er, and he went on a Bay Area radio program and said, jokingly, they asked him about the injury rate, and he joked, well, I think it's, the players joke that it's from that substation behind the facilities. And then so everybody laughs. And then he says, but there's some very high level players in the organization who take it seriously and are doing things to protect their health.
If you were anywhere near the internet in January 2026, you most likely saw the story about the American football team, the 49ers, and the possible relationships between their terrible injury rate and the fact that they practice right next to an giant electric substation. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google 49ers EMF and see all of the hundreds and hundreds of news hits that come up. This story was covered by several major American newspapers, news outlets from all over the world, and it went incredibly viral on social media. The last I checked, the X post that started it all had over 20 million views. So who broke this story? It is none other than Peter Cowan, who is a board-certified applied quantum biology practitioner and researcher. And he went through the program and has been doing very serious research in this topic on his own, writing about it on his Substack. It's Peter Anthony Cowan, Living Energy. Please go follow it and subscribe to support his work. He's doing really important, interesting citizen journalism, citizen research. He's completely independent and completely decentralized. And this is the power of the individual in collaboration and connection with a community of people who are focused on finding the truth without having to deal with all of the influences that come when you're part of the mainstream academia or mainstream journalism. And Peter changed the narrative on this topic. Up until this story broke, there was no real mainstream conversation happening about the effects of EMFs on human health. And even after it broke, most of the mainstream outlets tried to, quote unquote, debunk it right away. They didn't want it to get traction. They tried to make Peter look like a conspiracy theorist. They put his credentials in quotes like they didn't really matter. And what changed it and what stopped those debunking attempts, those conspiracy theory criticisms from taking hold, was just regular people like us. It was the football fans who don't like to see their athletes crippled by injuries over and over and over again. It was the general public. It was the players themselves. It was all of the real people on the ground going, actually, we'd like to hear a little more about this. Actually, it sounds like there could be something here. So big congratulations to Peter for getting this across the line, for changing the narrative. And can you feel the power of this? Can you feel the power of the shift that we're in? As the old media frameworks, the old stranglehold on information starts to fade away and open up into a new decentralized independent world that, of course, involves rigor, and we don't want to make false claims. And Peter is very careful about that. But there are conversations to be had. There is research that needs to be done. And Peter has kicked it off. So this is a crazy story. We go through the whole thing, Peter and I, in this conversation. And he also gives a really nice overview of the science of layering on all of the pieces of why he thinks the 49ers are so injured, and athletes and people in general. So if this was a story that piqued your interest, or you have friends, send them this interview. It's a really good way to just understand what's happening. Most of the news stories, while they did pick it up, did not do a great job of really explaining what's going on. So I know you're going to love this one. It's really powerful, really important. And I think we are just we're in the middle of a huge sea change in the world right now. And it's because of all you. It's because of all the stuff we're all doing together. Can you feel that? Can you? I hope you can. And anyway, to keep supporting this work, please also do visit our sponsors at bondcharge.com for all of your red light needs, your blue blocking glasses, your red night lights. If you don't know why you need those, keep listening to this interview. Peter explains the importance of circadian regulation. And also download my Circadian app, which is the absolute easiest way to make sure that you are having a regulated circadian rhythm, because it really, really matters. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I have like 150 other episodes on that topic. Please check it out and enjoy my conversation with Peter. He is coming on QBC Live next month to do a Q&A. So if you have questions for him, stuff that you want to talk to him about, please go to qbcpod.com and join our free community and come and chat with Peter later this month. We also have Q&A coming up with the founders of Bond Charge. So again, make sure you're in there to get the links to join all of these super fun live community calls, because people, we're changing the world. It's happening. All right, enjoy.
Peter Cowan, welcome to the Quantum Biology Collective podcast.
Thanks, Meredith. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so I'm happy to have you. You have had quite the 2026. Kicking off in January. I'm just going to briefly give my view of what happened. I follow you on X. You post very thoughtful, research-based posts that people really appreciate, and I love to see what you write. I'm like, oh, and then you did this one post about the 49ers and a potential link to their practice field being next to an electrical substation, and the potential link between that and the injury rate of the team. And I thought, oh, that's a really interesting post. Good for Peter. And then that just went crazy and ended up with one of the most viral posts of the year, like over 20 million views. And I was like, oh, cool. And then, because I don't follow sports at all.
Okay.
And then my husband was like, Meredith, Peter's in the Washington Post. And then my son was like, what's going on? The 49ers? Because he's really into football. So he gets on TikTok. He's like, Mom, my favorite sports TikToker is talking about Peter. And it was just, I was like, what? Anyway, I just want to lay that out for the audience that if you saw anything in the news about a link between the 49ers and the electric substation and injury rates, that story, you broke that story, Peter. So let's explain how that happened, what you did. You've been researching and studying this for years, and then you decided to get some really specific data and write your...
Yeah, I mean, and also you're talking about my thoughtful posts on X. That's about 50% of them. The rest of them are just kind of shit posting and just killing time because I'm on the computer. So just fair warning. I might be
okay. Well, my algorithm was showing really good, thoughtful research pieces.
Okay. So,
that's what I saw.
My most viral post before the 49ers thing was teasing Brian, what's his name? Brian Johnson, the guy, the tech guy that spends like $2.5 million a year on his health.
Oh yeah, and never goes outside.
Yeah, and
he looks like an alien.
Exactly. Yeah. So he posted his labs, and his testosterone was lower than mine, and I don't do anything really other than light and stuff. So that was my biggest. That's kind of shitposty stuff that I like to do. So fair warning.
That's all good. And that is, I think, at least half the value of social media.
Yeah. So where to start? Like, it's so hard to know where to start. Like,
okay.
For me,
let's start with you're in the car driving to the airport.
Okay.
With your RF meter.
Yeah. Well,
let's start there.
Gauss meter.
Gauss meter.
I did have my RF meter too. Yeah. I mean, I was down in Santa Cruz where I grew up for Thanksgiving and thought, I got to measure this. I was curious. People are talking about this, and I hadn't really heard of this. The fans had started talking about it in September because John Feliciano is an ex-49er, and he went on a Bay Area radio program and said, jokingly, they asked him about the injury rate, and he joked, well, I think it's, the players joked that it's from that substation behind the facilities. And then so everybody laughs. And then he says, but there's some very high level players in the organization who take it seriously and are doing things to protect their health. And he's like, I think it does something to the thyroid or something. I don't know. And then that was it. They moved on. And about a month later, this guy, Chase Senior, who's an NFL commentator, made a post about it. And it crossed my feed because I follow some EHS, electro hypersensitive people. And so they're on every little thing. And I saw it and I was like, maybe 30,000 posts. And I was like, that's interesting. And everybody's calling him a conspiracy theorist, but I'm like, he's right. And I knew I was going down to Santa Cruz for Thanksgiving. So I packed my EMF meters, and it was a busy weekend. And the only time I could go was on the airport with my dad. So I was like, Dad, hey, you want to come to the 49er station and we're going to measure some fields? And he was excited. And so we went, And we got there. I had a plan. Like I looked at the satellite and I knew where I wanted to go. And I got there. I couldn't go there because it's secure. It's like
Mm-hmm.
so we found this like a little parking ride behind the practice field where I could get a view of the stadium and talk to the guards, try to see if we get some access in there. Yeah, they're good. They did their job. And so then there's magnetic fields everywhere, though. It's just like really high everywhere. And it's because there's feeder lines under the ground. I'd go to the ground and I'd get like up to like 50 milligauss. Now they dissipate really quickly, though. So I didn't want to get that number. And then there's overhead power lines. And those are, you go higher up and you can see it's going higher. So I was trying to find a place where those fields were getting lower and another field was getting higher. So I finally found this little area underneath the fence, made sure that like there's all these electric like infrastructure that I made sure that it wasn't coming from that. And usually the commercial electrical stuff is very well shielded and they do it right. So I found a spot and I get the view and the numbers were going up. They went up from like 6, 7, 8, almost 9. I was like, okay, I can't prove this is coming from the substation, but I have enough information to know that there's magnetic fields, elevated magnetic fields everywhere around here. And as I get closer to the field, at the very least, it's getting higher. And then my dad started feeling unwell and we had to leave abruptly and took him to the doctor and then met my kids and got lunch at In-N-Out Burger and I went home and that was kind of that.
How is that? So I just want to kind of recap what happened here because there are many elements to this story. Like one element is what is happening to those players being exposed to that environment every day, all day, 5 days a week or whatever it is. One of the other pieces to the story is how information travels in our current media ecosystem. And what I find personally compelling about this is that this story broke because you followed up, you listened to what was going on, you knew you had the research background and the understanding to do the story justice, and you went and got the information yourself as a citizen journalist, as a citizen researcher, and you presented it online in a way that people could understand, and you laid the case out very clearly in a way that would make sense to people who maybe didn't have your background. And I would love everyone to digest that for a second, because I think that we all talk about wanting a paradigm shift, but then we're like, oh, I guess I'm just going to wait for that to happen. But we're doing it. Like you were an instrumental figure in breaking this story into the public discourse in a way that hasn't happened before. And all of the elements were in place. People, the 49ers fans are like desperate to figure out what's happening to their team.
Yeah.
The research is all there. If you are willing to connect the dots, you had people like Chase Sr., is it?
Yep.
Chase Sr., who was willing to take the risk of raising the story in a serious way. And you saw an opportunity to contribute and you went and did it. So I just want to say, like, high five, Peter. Well done.
Like a virtual high five, does that work?
Yeah. Woo!
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny, like it's like it goes back far, like why am I even on X? I don't really like social media, but Kira, do you know Kira Lee? Last year she was like, you got to get on X. It's great. We're having like great conversations. And so like, okay, I'll get on X. And so that's the only reason I'm on X. Then just like, why does anybody even follow me on X? Like all these just kind of incidental things, like not being, but I think the important thing you said is like taking a risk and not being afraid and putting your neck out. Like I've had some high profile interactions on X where I did kind of stick my neck out at personal expense, which harmed me in one way, but gained respect in other ways. So got people listening so that when I do post things, they're like, okay, this guy's, he might be kind of wacky, but he's got skin in the game and he's not afraid to put himself out there and take that risk. And I think it's an important part of what we're doing.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that your track record on X counted as well, right? Like if people went through your feed, you didn't just show up with that post. You had been posting and shit posting consistently over time in this area of light and biology and our environment and our biology.
Yeah.
And so when you had a strong point to make right at a moment when people really cared about it, it landed.
Yeah.
And it blew up in such a way. I mean, I was Googling 49ers electric substation like once a week for like 4 weeks just to see. It was covered globally, like CNN, at like every news outlet in every major country, like every Western country in the world
Yeah.
picked this up to some
Yeah.
extent. So how was that for you?
Honestly, it's interesting. It's been a ride. It's been fun, but like I have this unique ability to not care about what anybody else thinks about me, even like in the good side either. So it's like it's positive and negative, but I've just never cared. So it didn't affect me at all. And like in that respect, like being called a conspiracy theorist or my like over and over again, just like board certified quantum biology practitioner in scare quotes every single time. Even though if you go to my Instagram account, you can see the picture of that board certification by the American Naturopathic Board. Like it's there, but
Yeah.
over and over again. And just like every little way they could find to marginalize me, they would over and over again in the like mainstream, like legacy media. But just like the experience of the last 4-6 weeks, I'd never done an interview with anybody before ever. And honestly, I was dragging my feet. Like I had people that had been asking me because I talk a lot about EMFs and stuff, and I have personal expertise in it that goes back to when I worked at a Wi-Fi networking company, putting firmware for Wi-Fi routers. So people wanted to talk to me, and they'd be like, "Hey, can you come on the podcast tomorrow?" And I'd be like, "Can we do it in 2 weeks?" You know, and then like things move quick. Like people don't want to wait 2 weeks, and so I was dragging my feet, and so it was like a real just like, okay, you're in it, and it's time to go. And I texted Kira, and I was like, "You got any advice?" She's like, "Just be honest, be yourself. If you don't know something, say you don't know, and if they want to know more, you can point them to X, Y, and Z, and just like, you got this, you're fine." And I listened to that advice, and honestly, now my favorite thing to say on a podcast is I don't know, because there's so much I don't know. Like I'm not trying to pretend to be anybody other than who I am, and I think that kind of resonates with people because there are a lot of people going online and just like dumping facts and like blah blah blah, and like it's intimidating, and I can't even ingest most of it myself, and I'm pretty good at just like mainlining information. And so I think it's just resonated with people, and it's been really really fun.
Love it. Yeah, and that's great advice, because when someone's willing to say they don't know, then you trust them when they say they do know, or they have an idea, or if they've really looked into it.
Yeah.
And I love that, because that's where we are. I mean, when we, you and I are both outsiders to all of this. And I think it takes outsiders, our reputations don't really matter.
Exactly. Like
We can say whatever we want, whatever the research points to.
yeah, and like I love that they're calling me conspiracy theorist, because that just gives me freedom to say whatever I know to be true, and I don't have to like pretend anything. I can just be honest, and like the people who are going to write me off have already written me off, and everybody else who's like, wait a minute, there's something here, they're listening, and that's the important part.
Yes. And what I found really interesting too was, so the X post went viral, let's say day one. Let's call that day one. By day 3, the Washington Post had a piece, like a full article in their newspaper, which was clearly written to squash this whole narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And day 5, the story was bigger than ever, right? Like it absolutely did not work, and was a really clear indicator to me that the power of the mainstream media in certain areas, particularly health, is gone.
It's gone.
It's just not there anymore. And I did see they put applied quantum biology practitioner in quotations as though you had made it up. And you know what? Like, I get it. Like, mainstream journalists wouldn't have even ever seen the words quantum and biology put together. They would never have seen the words biophysics. So it was like a concept that doesn't exist for them. So to have a credential in a concept that doesn't exist for them, like, he must have just made that up.
Yeah. There's an interesting divide even within the mainstream press itself. Is like there's reporters that they're just doing their jobs, and so the Washington Post, there's 2 reporters, and like I'm so naive. I'm talking to Albert Samaha, and he's like, I'm not totally naive. Like I know that he's going to do the story he's going to do, but like I didn't think about how I was phrasing certain answers and stuff. And I didn't ask him if he was working with someone else on the story. And so we talked a good hour over a couple of days, and I could tell he wanted to give me a fair hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it wound up getting published a day before I thought it was going to get published. So I didn't have time to get him to talk to these two other experts that I was going to forward to him. So it goes out there, and then I see that he published it with this guy named Sam Fortier. I think that's how you say his name.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy, I look at his record, he's clearly just like kind of like the mainstream. We're going to debunk these crazy whatever conspiracy theorists, and like he's gone on podcasts talking about his debunking and kind of stuff, and like
That's his brand. He's the
it's more of his
debunker.
brand. Yeah, yeah.
Got it.
So, and maybe I got some of those details wrong. Sorry, Sam, if I got some of those wrong. I've talked to him a little bit online. He actually lost his job in the Washington Post. Both of them did in the Washington Post. And it's a bummer. Like some people were like,
was an interesting piece of the story. 3
it
weeks
was,
after that,
yeah. And
the entire sports section of the Washington Post was dissolved. But anyway, okay, keep going.
But yeah, so anyway, so you have this architecture of how journalism works now.
Mm-hmm.
And they have these deadlines, and they have only so much time, and they're not experts, so they have to trust other people. And they have institutions that they work for. They're like, well, we trust these people, so you can't really talk to these other experts. Maybe you get one of them, and it's usually like just the same person who's like marginally open to these ideas, but just mostly there. And I respect this of you a lot. If it's a mainstream side that says, actually, we just don't know, there's not enough information. I actually agree with that. We don't know. Me and everybody in the quantum community, we make these connections, and we look out in the world and we see evidence, and in our clinical practice, that's where my hypothesis came from. And so I believe it to be true, and I will, I'll stake my name on it. But if I'm a scientist looking at the data, the actual answer is we just don't know enough.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly what little things are happening because it's so complex.
Yes. And I think that's an interesting point between the role of the scientist and the role of a clinician or a practitioner. It's like the scientist does need to prove it. But for people working in the real world with people who are really getting injured all the time or really getting sick, if there are interventions that are low risk to no risk that are showing positive outcomes, that have some basis in researched reality, like we need to be able to move faster than the scientists.
Yep. And the other side of that coin, and is the story of my life, is that if you go to like your typical allopathic medicine, the third leading cause of death, I think, in this country is iatrogenic harm. So basically you've been harmed by the medicine that was supposed to cure you. And so we're like, not only are we doing these low risk interventions that are like whatever, like on the fringe, we're not harming people.
Yes.
Honestly, that was what drew me to the board certification, because I looked at the oath that you have to take, and you take a serious oath about not doing harm. So I took that very seriously. Like, I'm not a credentials person. I dropped out of high school. I dropped out of high school, and I went to a fake guy in Santa Cruz named West Beach, started Beach High School because we're in Santa Cruz, and you go to him, you give him $80. He says, what are you going to do with yourself? And I said, I'm teaching myself to play piano, and I'm going to play piano all day. And then I'm going to go to the community college. And I started getting into computers, and I'm like hacking online. And he's like, cool, you can do that. So the reason I got this credential is not so people be like, oh, you're a credentialed important person. It's because like, it comes with real responsibility. And I think that's the part that people who are doing this, like scare quotes, miss, is like, no, I took an oath and I take it very seriously. And so when I heard John Feliciano saying, these players are concerned about this, and I thought everybody's laughing at them, I'm going to take it seriously, because they might be rich millionaire athletes, but honestly, they're cattle to the NFL. They're being abused. It's just because they have more money than us doesn't mean their health isn't important. And as we've seen with CTE, like the way that the NFL just like brushed that under the rug, just like people's lives ruined for 5 years. Like average tenure in the NFL is 3.8 years or something like that. And then you spend the rest of your...
I didn't know it was so short.
Yeah, it's a really high impact sport. And like for a running back, it's even shorter, just because there's damage all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, like that's a serious thing. Like with some reporter, like if any reporter is listening to this, let's talk about these parts of it. I think there's really interesting stories here beyond the like, you're a conspiracy theorist. Like there's a really interesting story about the dynamic of how the institutions work in this country and across the board. Like, not just journalism, not just medicine, everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, we're gonna get into it, but the
Yeah.
human tendency is to, if there's a game to be played, to cheat and to fire the game in your favor. And we've reached a point with our institutions where they've been around long enough that they've all been gamified
Yeah.
to a certain extent,
Yeah.
which opens the field up for randos like you and I to
Yeah.
have a space for an opinion, because people
Yeah.
are just seeking real information. And I think the point that you make about these famous millionaire athletes still needing support, right? I think there's this kind of mythology out there like, oh, if you have a lot of money or you have a lot of access, you're just going to automatically know the people who know the most important information. And the way things are right now, like that's just not true. So you could be one of these very famous football players and you could have a gut instinct about practicing next to an electrical substation every day, and you still have no one to talk to about it. You still have it's where are they going to go? Everyone they reach out to is going to go with the conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
So your willingness to pick it up and like the fact that we have these public platforms as a place to publish it, it's a whole new world if we do it, the way that you did, where you're very thorough and cite your sources and take it seriously and admit it's an ongoing thing. So it's very cool. So let's explain for people like what exactly the theory is. So
Okay.
everyone's kind of like, yeah, I heard something about like the 49ers and the substation injuries. What is the theory for a non-scientific audience?
I'm gonna do like the high level, just like oversimplified, because I laid out
Mhm.
5 mechanisms and there's actually more. We could just keep on
Yes.
going. And I did it did one in a way that people who got like a mainstream medical education could understand and speak to them. But just the high level for the people who are interested in quantum biology is basically electromagnetic fields disrupt your mitochondria. I'm sure everybody here knows already, but let's just go through it. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, right? It's where we get our energy, and the electron transport chain is an important part of that. These electrons go across the inner mitochondrial membrane. They turn into water and ATP and free radicals, radical oxygen species. So if you know a little bit about physics, you know that a charged particle in motion creates a magnetic field. So we have our own endogenous electromagnetic field that is it's very, on the absolute terms, very weak, but on relative terms for how small it is, it's equivalent to like a bolt of lightning or something like that. I think Nick Lane writes about that in Vital Question. And so one of the fundamental laws of physics from Maxwell is that the principle of superposition. If you have an electromagnetic field and you lay another one over it, they change each other. So it's like you have this weak one down here that I like to talk about as like a ripple in a pond. You drop a little pebble in a pond and the ripples come out, and then a boat comes by and you got these big waves, and that's altering the ripples. They're compressing at the bottom and stretching at the top. And so that's what's happening to the little field on our mitochondria. It's getting stretched and compressed, and that's pulling electrons off. And so when you lose electrons, you get more radical oxygen species. And if you get enough of those, you'll get oxidative stress, and that leads to tissue damage. But more importantly, you get less water. I shouldn't say more importantly, but importantly for this hypothesis, you get less water. And the more the damage that is done to the mitochondria, at a certain point, it's giving off so many radical oxygen species that it goes into glycolysis mode, and it's a safer mode of energy production, but it produces much less ATP and no water. So you're basically dehydrating yourself at the cellular level. And that's important in this theory because collagen is 9.7 or 8% water by molecular count. And the water in collagen is what makes up our soft tissues and our bones and a lot of important tissues in our bodies. So we're dehydrating ourselves, and the water in collagen is structural. It's not just there to make it wet. It's an important part, and it gives it kind of that elasticity. And so basically at a very fundamental level, you're dehydrating yourself, and that means less water, to give your collagen the structure that it needs. On this one mechanism that we're talking about.
And there are more, but okay, for that one. So in a healthy mitochondria, if we're, say, walking around outside, we're people who live in a fully natural environment, our mitochondria are working really well. The electron charge travels in a nice tight line, and there's creating lots of structured water. And so our cells have lots of energy. They can communicate well with each other. And when we enter an area that has interference, we're stretching out so that electron transport change gets stretched out and the electrons fall off. And then basically what I'm hearing is like our mitochondria go into a bit of a coma.
Yeah.
They're like hibernating
Yeah.
because it's like I have to shut down as much as possible in order to deal with this interference.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good way of explaining it. Yeah.
As a metaphor, okay? I'm
Yeah.
I'm an English major, peeps.
Yeah.
We got to do some metaphors so everyone can understand.
You're an English major and I'm a high school dropout. So if we can get it, anybody can get it.
Yes, if we can wrap our minds around it. And so then the cells are all dehydrated. So then you're playing high impact sports and you hurt yourself. It's like instead of you have no resilience.
Yeah. And so it changes how the collagen is remodeled, basically. And so in healthy collagen, you get this cross-linking. So you think of like a steel cable or something. It's kind of, it's wrapped around and like intertwined and stuff. And you can go online and you can Google pictures of this. You can see when it's not getting regenerated correctly. And this is when you get into circadian mechanisms and stuff. It's more like, it's like a frayed rope. Like you can just see that it's not built with the amount of integrity that you need to handle these massive loads. I think I don't remember, it's like 2,000 pounds of force or something like that when they're like cutting and like the pressure on their Achilles tendon. It's a massive, and they're big guys too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so incredible. So let's talk a little bit about like layer in the circadian piece here. The post that you wrote and the conversation that's happening is really around these non-native electromagnetic fields that the players are immersed in. Now let's layer on the circadian piece.
Yeah. And I think it's something that a lot of people miss. And we're just a little aside here. We're talking about how media works now. So my post on Twitter got 22.2 million views. It was a thread though. The second post in the thread is under 1 million. And then when you look at the first link in my Substack, I think it's up to like 80, 90,000 clicks. The third one, which is the last one that goes detailed into the mechanism, which is the one that goes into the circadian mechanism, which I think is the most important one, got 8,000 views. And that's not even to count like all the media, like all the people that never even looked at the tweet or just like saw it on TikTok or whatever. They don't know the full story and yet they're talking about it. And it's just this kind of noise. This is this chatter online. Everybody's got an opinion. Nobody reads. If you actually read my piece, I never said that the substation is the only reason that the 49ers are injured as the way they are. And I also didn't say it was the most important reason. There's obviously factors within football and training, and a lot of them wind up taking antibiotics to like the Cipro and those kind of really hardcore antibiotics that have their own collagen degrading mechanisms. So it's never one thing. But stressors add on top of each other. And at some point, it's like the straw that broke this camel's back. I do believe, though, that the circadian stuff is actually the straw that's breaking the camel's back. League-wide, all sports, probably even the Olympics too. I haven't been following, but like there's objective data showing that soft tissue injuries are up across the board. I think it'd be interesting to look in high school sports too, like just everywhere. Yeah. I do think that circadian is the number one issue causing those problems. And so to like the two things that are important in circadian is that, well, you have the melatonin factor and just like cellular repair. If you're on your screen until midnight, melatonin is not getting released, not in the repair process, just in general, you're not getting the repair that you need. But there's some specific mechanisms to collagen repair. And one of it is, I think it's an amino acid, or I'm not a biochemist, lysyl oxidase. And that has a circadian timing mechanism to it. And that is how your collagen is remodeled when you sleep. And so if you're not getting the adequate darkness and you're not getting up in the morning and getting that circadian cue, like let's say you're getting up at 4 in the morning and working out or whatever people do. Like, I don't know what sports players do, but they have these rigorous schedules that like are not really set by them for the most part.
Yeah.
They're watching film until late at night, on the
Yeah.
big
And
screen.
then they unwind playing video games.
Yeah. And then they're young guys and they're making a lot of money and they want to have fun. And, like, I don't blame them. And they're just living in the world that's been created for them. And what do they know? Like, they're being told. And then they're flying, across the country for big games. So if you're on the East Coast and you come West Coast and you play a night game, it's like 11 p.m. your time. You're getting blasted by these lights that by the NFL standards have to be 3K. And I'm not going to get into technical details, but it's basically if you wanted to design a system that would just fry your circadian timing, that would be it. It's what they need for it to look good on the 4000K TV or 4000 whatever pixel TV. I'm not a TV person, but
Right.
and so you're not getting that the timing is off for your collagen repair. And then there's another piece with the fibroblasts, and that's where it's called MMP matrix metalloproteinase or something like that. And if it gets upregulated, it will actually degrade collagen more. And that is also on a circadian timing mechanism. So I think those three things, and maybe the melatonin by itself is the biggest problem. Honestly, we all know like how important it is to make sure you got your lights dimmed when it's dusk and warm lighting. But those two things together is just like perfect storm to
Wow.
degrade the collagen.
It's the perfect storm to destroy your body. Okay,
Yeah.
so the non-native electromagnetic fields piece we covered, it's like an assault on the cell. The cell goes into a kind of hibernation coma in order to withstand this stressful interference. On top of that, the time when it's meant to be restored and repaired, the way our biology is set up to restore and repair itself when we're sleeping, that mechanism is also being disrupted because their circadian regulation is completely out of whack just through the way their life is set up. So they don't get the melatonin, which helps all of that to happen. So it's like we're putting the cells into this stressful situation where they have to deal with this onslaught of non-native electromagnetic interference and then they're not getting adequate rest and repair.
Yep. Yeah.
So of course. And then on the third thing, they're taking antibiotics and there's all other kinds of lifestyle factors that are further degrading.
Yep.
So it's like no wonder.
Yeah. Yeah. No wonder.
No wonder. And they're playing a really intense sport.
Yeah. And they're just like, they're elite athletes. They're probably on the edge of what humans are capable of. And so like things show up in a more dramatic way in someone who has that kind of level of performance. Like, so one of the things I hear a lot is like, well, I'm an electrical lineman and my tendons aren't falling apart. And it's like, yeah, but you're probably going home and drinking a beer and sitting on the couch. But also like I said, this hypothesis came from my work with people who had MCAS back in last year. I was really interested in that because I see it as environmental illness. And
say a little more about that.
So MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, it often comes in a triad of syndromes. The other two are EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is considered to be a congenital hypermobility disorder. So your tendons are hypermobile. And then POTS, I always have trouble saying this one, postural orthopedic tachycardia syndrome. And that's more of like you stand up and your blood pressure elevates and you get like foggy vision and sometimes people pass out and their blood vessels are weak. And so you get pulling in the legs. And so there's all these feedback mechanisms and all three are connected. And you tend to have, if you have one, you tend to have all three or at least two of them. Maybe one of them is like subclinical. POTS and EDS we've known about for a long time. MCAS, I think, was turned into a formal diagnosis in 2010, roughly. If you go to, so I was interested in MCAS because some of the important research on RF is that so mast cells are basically like immune cell, like kind of defenders. They're kind of like on the front line. And our tissues are really dense in them. And the mast cells themselves are really dense with mitochondria. And there's a researcher, Ola Johansson at the Karolinska Institute in Sweden or Norway. He's done research showing that specifically that RF activates the mast cells. So mast cells they're programmed to be like kind of watching out for environmental harm. And when, let's say, like an allergen comes in, they'll release histamines and other growth factors, and that'll protect your body from this danger in the environment. But when they get activated, they just get stuck on. Some of those growth factors in small doses are protective, and then in higher doses start breaking your tissues down. And so the common story with this triad is that EDS is the thing that leads to the other two, but it's a congenital disorder. And so if you look, I went to Google Trends and I saw this like ramping up, just like, and why would a congenital disorder all of a sudden go from like 0.5% to like 5? I don't remember. It's high though. And then,
Right.
and then you look and you look into MCAS and it's newer. The diagnostic standards are a little bit loose. And the people that actually do the research say that they believe it's maybe like 17% of the population suffers from some form of MCAS. So once I figured that out and I put all three of those together, I saw them going up on the same curve. And so then it was clear to me that EDS was not causing it, and probably wasn't POTS because that's more of a specific thing. So MCAS, what happened in 2010? That's right around the time that smartphones became ubiquitous. And
Right. And that's the time when we started to see the trend in a way that could not be explained by
exactly. Yep.
genetics or
Yep.
inherited
Exactly.
traits.
Yeah. Yeah. So like we look at these athletes, this is like circling back, and they're having explosive tendon injuries. And then I'm seeing in my clinical work, people with just like weak tendons, weak blood vessels, and they're in chronic pain. And if the structure is bad enough, you actually get autonomic nervous system issues and you get gut issues. And these are things I actually suffered with in my life, not having a name for them, but just terrible tendon issues. Like there was a point in my life when if I wanted to drink a glass of water, I had to hold it like this with my wrists, just like, because I couldn't use my fingers, and I'd be like this.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And there's some interesting research about tendinopathy and stuff. Like it's not just showing up in elite athletes, and and also we all have our own different weak points. So somebody else, it's not going to manifest in the tendons first. It's going to manifest maybe in your pancreas, and you're like gaining a lot of weight and you're insulin resistant. Somebody else it's going to manifest in like your heart, and you're going to have a heart attack. And so all this like, well, I'm okay is to me, it's a little bit like, okay, you can live that way if you want and have your head in the sand, and that's fine. Like, I don't want to force anybody to have to listen to my health advice. Like, people are free to be unhealthy. Like, that's the world we live. And people also need to learn their own lessons. So, but to answer that question, yeah, you might be an electrical worker who's not snapping your tendons, but that doesn't mean that doesn't disprove this hypothesis.
That it's not having an effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is super, super interesting, Peter. So let's just jump back to the MCAS for a minute. Tell me, can you say again what that is and what you're saying is like it could really show up in any type of symptom? So
MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, basically, if you ever had allergies, like that's histamines, and it's triggering whatever thing. Some people get mucus, some people get hives. I'm not an allergist, but I assume that has a little bit to do with where your weak points are and like where the mast cells get more sensitized. But they're getting specifically activated. And then you probably have like a histamine clearance issue in your liver or something that makes them build up, and you're not detoxing properly. With mast cell activation, it's not a clearance problem. It's actually an activation problem. They're just pumping out histamine, and these like VEGF is a growth factor, and your body is not designed to get just like onslaught of those nonstop. And so
what does a healthy mast cell do?
What does a healthy mast cell, what it would do would just be, it's like, I think of it as like a sentinel. It's like observing and pathogens and things come in, and it responds to them and eliminates them, or this is where I'm not a I can't tell you exactly what happens, but like,
in general, like it's the generalized function.
So it's doing its job. It's helping your immune. It's like the forefront of your immune system. So dealing with things before they actually get inside and start doing damage.
Okay. So they're guarding.
Yeah, they're guarding. Yeah.
Okay. And then when we have a mast cell activation situation, they've gone crazy.
Yeah, it's basically everything is a threat. maybe you could almost think about it like kind of in autoimmune terms, because it is attacking your own tissues at that point. But the threat is that these radio frequencies are basically just causing them to open up and
Mm.
be on respond as if and they're getting hit by an allergen, when it's almost as actually just this biophysical mechanism that's going straight to the mitochondria.
Right. So all of these incredibly beautiful and complex systems that our biology has to keep us safe and healthy, we're activating them in unnatural ways by exposing ourselves to all kinds of interference, light, darkness getting messed up, electromagnetic fields getting messed up. It's incredible. Yeah, the POTS thing, I have heard from like multiple different moms of teenage daughters,
Yeah.
and it starts out with an anxiety diagnosis, and then they realize, they realize it's POTS. And the most heartbreaking one was this woman. She didn't know anything about anything. I was sitting next to her at a lunch at something that was not a health related event. And, she took her daughter. They lived in a city that had one of those very famous clinics, one of the globally famous clinics. She took her daughter there because the POTS diagnosis was getting worse and worse, including full body rashes. Now that you're talking about, yeah. And they basically said, yeah, it's going to be all downhill. Come back when she needs a wheelchair.
Yep. Yeah.
She was like 19 years old.
Yeah. That's not uncommon. It's very tragic.
What would your recommendation be in a situation like that? And what did you see when you worked with people clinically?
It's really hard because like I worked with someone and we got him in like pretty much the ideal environment, like theoretically, and he just wasn't getting better. And then he took a trip to Hawaii and he even had like some mold in the house. Like it was not like, but like, you want to live your life, and the family wanted to go on vacation. So he went, and he was on a medication that it increases his blood pressure because of the POTS. And all of a sudden, a day or two after arriving, his blood pressure was too high and he had to get off the medication. And so then he did the same thing. He went to Lake Tahoe, same exact problem, same thing happened. And so something in his home environment was, even though we had cleaned up all of his light and his EMF and everything, he, and he had a vaccine injury from the COVID vaccine, which is honestly, it's a very common trigger for this stuff, which people do not like to talk about, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen that evidence of that. And so you really have to find out what the trigger is. And unfortunately, sometimes it is something in your environment that you can't do anything about. And then you have to find a way to get out of the environment.
So he would travel to other places and feel better and then go back home and feel worse.
Yep. And we're talking like he had the ideal situation. He was living on a lake outside of town, like grounding all day, like getting it, do all the circadian things and zero EMF. Like I got him buy a tri-field meter, and the numbers were amazingly low. Like it was just, I was like, can I come visit you? Because it sounds ideal. I live in a city and I got pretty good here, but it's not as good as I'd like it to be. But there was maybe something in the air or something in the water. I just like, I wanted to help this kid so bad, and like we couldn't figure it out.
But even that itself, like, is information.
It is
actionable information, right? It's like, okay, you looked at it in a way where you were able to like figure some things out. There's something in the environment you're living in. And what I find with people who go through these clinics or go through the allopathic system, it's like they just leave with nothing.
Nothing.
Like, wait till you're worse is basically what they leave with. And we have then we can give you a medication to manage the symptoms that are going to come down. I hear you. There are these, it's very complex, and we don't always, as much as we want to find that trigger, we don't always find it right away, but at least we have a map.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And the other side, like sometimes they go to the mainstream clinic and they get worse because they get some medicine that was like supposed to help them and gives them side effects. And then that's what happened to this kid. Like over and over again, you go to the doctor and they give him something, and like he had SIBO, and they gave him some, I don't remember which it was. And it's basically your mitochondria, like, are they're an archaea, which is like an H type of bacteria that's very similar to SIBO. So you kill the SIBO and you just destroy your mitochondria. But then it's just this little dance, and like you're just managing your symptoms at best. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really the difference between what like a quantum biologic view brings to the table versus a non-quantum quantum biologic view. Even functional medicine is like, oh, it's an imbalance and we'll give you supplements. Like that's still not the root cause. It may be better than taking a drug to treat a symptom, but it's still not getting to the root cause. And as you said, like we don't claim to have all the answers, but it is a much wider blueprint.
It is. And I think,
right? Like if you go down to mitochondria, then like you're at least starting at the starting point.
Yeah. And you can help build the foundation, to give them more resilience. It's interesting though, you mentioned the functional medicine. I think this kid in particular was harmed more by the functional practitioner they went to than the institutional, legacy allopathic medicine, because he was given.
Can you give us an outline of this case study?
Yeah. So he was given a probiotic.
Okay. So this was that he was presenting with digestive issues?
So he, I don't know, to this point, I don't know if he had been formally diagnosed with MCAS. He definitely had been diagnosed with POTS and EDS. Okay. And I think he had been diagnosed with MCAS at this point. But the main issues he was dealing with at that point was digestive and gut pain, which is very common in MCAS people. And he was given a probiotic that was very high in histamine, I don't remember but anyway, the probiotic that he was given was triggered the next phase of his illness. And he was trying to get back to that point when I was working with him, just trying to get back to the point of, I just have gut pain and some EDS and some POTS. And so the point is not to, I think there's a lot of really, really good functional medicine practitioners, is just, there's always a risk when you introduce supplements, and you do have to be careful. And a lot of the mitochondrial stuff we do it's low to zero risk. And you get a person into a point where they can take a little bit more risk with supplements and medications and stuff if needed, and just kind of after you built the foundation.
Yeah. And that's what it comes down to, right? Like I talk about light on this podcast where it's like, oh, you talk about food sometime. I'm like, no, I'm going to talk about light because it's foundational. And if we get to a point where people pay as much attention to their light and their electromagnetic environment as they do to their food, then maybe we can move to a new topic, but we're not there. And it's the foundation. For somebody who's working with complex chronic illness or chronic injury or chronic anything, to not understand this, back to the oath you took, to present this as optional, it's not optional.
Yeah.
It's not optional.
It's not. And I think my story is a pretty good instructive example. I spent almost 3 decades very ill, just different forms of illness. And right now I've been going nonstop, actually since September, just working pretty much every day, all day. And the only things that I'm doing for my health is I get up and I watch the sunrise, or, within 15 minutes of it, try to get at least 20 minutes, but I make the effort to get 30 to 45 minutes of sun around the UVA rise. And then when nighttime comes, the lights are off. I'm hardcore about it. Other than that, I'm I do eat a ton of seafood. Okay, I'll give you that. I do that. Not doing anything else. Nothing. No breathing. Not working out. Not eating In-N-Out burger. I mean, I eat ice cream at night. Sometimes I've had a long day and I didn't eat a good dinner and there's some ice cream. I'm not doing circadian, eating in the daylight hours at all. And I'm just trying to get through the day, and I feel pretty good, actually. That's from decades of points at which I don't even know how I'm going to get through the day. I'm a single parent. I got a full-time job and I got to get my kids to school and feed them and then feed myself. And I just don't even know how I'm going to get through the day. And non-issues, just not an issue anymore. And and I've mitigated completely my EMF at my workstation and in my bedroom. And I turn the Wi-Fi on only when I need it. And that's when I'm outside and I want to have, and then even then I have other mechanisms. So just basic, lock in the environment and do a couple things that you kind of engineer your workday around if you can. And your system just kind of responds. It's non-linear effects. It's amazing how effective it is.
Yeah, it really is. That's amazing. And just speaks to the importance of this. And I think the amazing good news is there's so much to leverage, right? It's not oh, no, all this stuff is bad for us. It's oh, yay, it's relatively easy to change.
Yeah.
If you live next to a cell tower, maybe not, but for most of us, it's just some switches in our habits
Yeah.
and thinking about things that we might not be thinking about. And as you said, can have a huge outsized impact
Huge.
on how we feel right now and how we're going to feel down the road. Peter, is there anything else you would like to say before we wrap
Gosh,
up? It's
I don't have any
been
specific.
such a ride for you.
Yeah. I don't know. No, I don't really have anything specific to say at this point. I think we covered a lot. Just thanks. I was happy to thank here's this. One of the weirdest things about this going viral is that, like, you go online and you see like your face on all these videos and stuff. And like, I've got like 500 Instagram followers, and you got a ton of people that reach out and like want a piece of you. And then I think a lot of other people just kind of shy away because like, oh, he's probably too busy or whatever. There've been a handful of people that have just reached out and said, hey, good job. And you're one of them. Like, it's really a small number of people. And so just like thank those people. And I don't want to call anybody else, but those people know who they are. I just want to thank you. And anybody else you want to reach out, I'm pretty easy to get in touch with. And I'm been making a lot of really cool connections with people and exciting stuff in the works. Like, I can't announce any of it right now, but like, there's some cool stuff happening. And this is like, I think this is like, it's kind of like a mass awakening moment, honestly. Like, the feedback that I've gotten just from like normal people, NFL fans, and then like people that are just like, it's in the ether too. And there's like, yeah, I was at my mom's group and like everybody's talking about EMF now. And like, it's like a rise in consciousness. It's happening right now. And there's opportunities to do really cool things with it. And I love collaborating with people. So feel free to reach out.
Wonderful. And for people to support your work, you are on Substack. So please go to Peter's Substack. Is it just your name, Peter Cowan?
It's actually Peter Anthony Cowan.
Peter Anthony Cowan. Peter Anthony Cowan on Substack. We'll put the link in the show notes. Please go and support Peter's work. He's doing amazing stuff out there in the world that is clearly having an impact.
You mentioned that. I do. I mean, I've got about 9 essays that are in rough draft form that I will continue this investigation. There's actually a really, I think, kind of exciting one coming up that's another angle on this. I don't want to give it away right now because I'm working with some people that do like an exclusive on it, but there's some other health mechanisms and potentially legal mechanisms that are like brewing that have been tested in California and some other states and have won. But the lawyers for the utilities and stuff, they kind of practice like a battle of attrition right now. They will just pour all their money in it so that the people who are fighting for damages run out of money and can't really win. It's really on the line, but like, this is the kind of thing that once you get over the hump with one of them, it's the floodgates are open. So
yeah,
I'm really excited about that one.
Yes. And the public response to these things really does matter.
It does.
I was reminded of that. I did an interview recently with Dr. Lance Becker, who's very high up in the hospital administration and is trying to move the needle with quantum biology. And I obviously think the public matters, but he saw too, he's like, we can't do this alone. Like, there needs to be the demand from the people.
100%.
And that has really been activated to another level with your 49ers work. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you.
You are also a musician.
I am.
So why don't I'm going to play a little of your music to take us out.
Oh, you're going to play it? Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I'm just going to play it.
Okay, cool. Which one are you going to pick? I'm just going to wait and listen. So the reason we're doing that is I want to mention is that I've gotten written from people that they dug in and they looked through all my links until they found my piano music, and they're having dinner parties. And they're like, we sat down and we pressed play on your piano music, and we had such a lovely dinner party. So anybody wants to have a dinner party to my piano music, and if you do it, let me know because it makes me so happy.
Yes, this is at petercowan.com. You can find Peter's composition. I'm going to hit play and we will see you all next time. Peter, thank you so much for today.
Thank you, Meredith. It was such a pleasure.
You have made it to the end of another episode of the QBC podcast. Congratulations and well done. Don't forget to visit us at qbcpod.com. That's qbcpod.com. You can find all of the episodes, all the links in the show notes, the tools that I use, and anything else, links to the Institute, all of the things. And please do join the QBC free community if you haven't. That's where we send most of our updates. All right. Thanks for being here. If you also, please make sure you rate this podcast wherever you listen to it. There's so many millions of places these days, but it really helps and we really appreciate it. Thank you for being here.